The Final Supper, Chapter 1.
For God's sake, let us sit upon the ground and tell sad stories of the death of kings.
Scene 2, Act 3, Richard II, 6:27 AS. The stones of the castle to the southeast of the highlands were white, and the interior walls were decorated with a great many tapestries of the history of the lairds of the region, from King Domhnall I, leading into the stories of his son Ringen, then to his grandson Domhnall. None of them, since Domhnall I, were expected to achieve the rank of High King. The castle stood tall, on a rise with the large family standard fluttering defiantly in the wind above the towers to either side of the gates, displaying their pride in their recently gotten position. Within the castle walls, the floors were adorned with silver and crimson carpets, with the emblem of a silver falcon at the center of them, with candlesticks lit all throughout the castle. No less opulent was the recently renovated royal chapel, with stained glass windows, filling the chamber with the light of a myriad vivid colors, and an altar at the front. The altar was cast from stone, yet far more ostentatious now than before Domhnall's coronation. The benches were built of the finest redwood that could be found, having been seized and transported there from Sigane. The death of Mael Martin had left a void open to many a pretender, especially since the heir, Ketil, had been abroad negotiating a new pact with Britia. Yet the one who proceeded to grasp the throne and scepter was none other than Domhnall III. Wiser than his predecessor, he had opted for a more peaceful solution rather than turning to the axe to solve the problem represented by those with a better claim. This had not resolved anything at all, though, as rebellion in the south, in the west, and in the north flared, it seemed, every few months. This weighed on the aged king, just as another rebellion would spark to life, and Ringen would insist on the command. He would allow him to lead the armies and squash the revolt.
Why, dear brother Freyr, must squabbling still infest the land? The people prayed for peace after Mael Martin, yet still, it is but a distant dream. Nothing seems to cool the tempers, the mind games, and the blades of all those who live within my kingdom. All I wished for was unity, especially between Ringen and I, and yet...
Old King Domhnall spoke with utter misery in his voice. This old bearded man with wrinkles on his face had what could only be described as rings under his eyes. He was dressed finely in regal wear of silk and the greatest of royal colors, purple, that designated his rank. Next to him was a druid in his simple green robes representative of the thistle of the goddess Scotia. He was listening intently, without judgment. The crown of his head was bald, though not old. He felt it. He sighed wearily in spite of only being a little past 40. He waited and was rewarded for his patience, with Domhnall continuing on miserably.
Family threatening each other, shouting and cursing one another. They cannot be within the same castle without plotting the death of one another. This is what it means to be king. I should never have allowed Ringen to convince me to take the throne.
Are there other matters that weigh upon your soul, Highness? I am always here to listen to thy concerns and heartbreaks.
The druid asked of the king.
Not at present, my friend. I have other matters to attend to. Thank you for listening to this foolish old man's somber complaints. My sons have requested I speak to them soon.
Looking down at the ground, he appeared older than ever at that moment.
I pray it is not as dreadful this time.
Chapter 2. At the opposite end of the keep, there on the second floor, 4 young men awaited. The eldest was pacing vigorously back and forth the length and breadth of his bedchambers. To one side was his large straw bed, with a table on one side of it with a pair of chairs, while on the other side of it was another pair of redwood chairs. The stone floor beneath the table and chairs was covered in a crimson and white carpet with gold trimmings, the family falcon at the center of it. Next to the eldest of the men present was the stone chimney, where a large fire roared and crackled as fiercely as a lion. The man, muttering to himself, was noteworthy for his brown hair, blazing blue eyes, and his mighty build, which resembled that which his father had once had. Dressed in a red tunic, made from the finest wool in the realm, and the family falcon embroidered into the livery, with black trousers and a sword girded to his belt, he bore the appearance of a man not to be trifled with. The second to eldest of the brothers was sitting on one of the chairs, the one by the open windows with their black curtains, enjoying the late autumn breeze. knees. Tapping his finger on his knee, he studied his brother with dark chestnut eyes inherited from their mother. This brother was dressed in greener colors to those of his brother. His dark brown eyes flashed with annoyance.
Nickel, can you stop and sit down? You are making my head spin. Father will be done with his absolver soon.
The eldest turned suddenly to his younger brother.
Nay, am I to continue to be made a mockery of, David? Father must pay heed to all concerns of the most dishonorable of betrayals and broken oaths.
Aye, but this is not the first time he has made excuses. We need to continue with a calm head. It is queer that this is the matter he is stubborn with, yet he is willing to let our dear uncle always have his way.
David retorted, icier than the coldest of wintry days. He was as angry as his brother. However, he had managed to retain a cool head, and there was a growing irritation in his voice, as if to hold in the last vestiges of his rage. The third of the brothers was leaning against the wall near to the bed. His own hair was the color of a rusty sword, and his own brown eyes had little rust in their expression.
If Father shan't hear our pleas, then we approach the matter ourselves,
he stated as if it were a simple fact. This won him a nod from David, and served to calm Neokul a little. The youngest in the group, who was sitting with them, rose up to his feet, hitherto silent, and dressed all in black, blue eyes on the flames. His hand tugging at his beard as he studied them, an impassive expression on his face, which lit up the moment the door cracked open and creaked over to allow their father entry. At this time, it was not he, though, who spoke first, but the man next to him, the one who had leaned back against the stone wall between the bed and the door.
Father, at last. We must discuss the matter.
The brown-haired young man spoke up as the old man sighed as he approached them. He walked as if the entire castle was to collapse upon him.
Aye, Raybert, I know what this is about, and the answer continues to be nay. It would cause trouble with your uncle, Ringian. Perhaps when he returns, we may discuss the matter we can.
Dumna was cut off by David this time, who is typically the most fiery of the brothers as he lost what little patience he had.
When he returns, I pray he dies at the front. Then the matter shall be solved with peace. Father, Nickel has endured the humiliation and taunts of our cousins, and the jeers of many lairds, and the airs of more mayors throughout every week of your ill-begotten reign. And you wish to deny a proper resolution for the insults your beloved brother has committed against not just him, but you as well? Nay. We demand resolution. We demand justice.
The man shook with rage, shooting up from his seat and breathing deeply.
I agree with David, Father. This insult that slattern has inflicted upon our brother needs to be rectified, and if not, we shall see to it.
The red-haired man replied with uncharacteristic heat.
Mawilius, peace. We are family. There is no need for aggressive action. A peaceful way to resolve the matter must be found, rather than resorting to demanding reparations from Ringian in such a tone, for he shall undoubtedly refuse if you approach him in that manner.
Then what is the solution? We have waited long enough, and this slattern continues to mock the oaths she swore to Neokul.
His tone was harsh, and silence fell in the room, with the old king looking away, weary already. This had been the nature of his reign ever since it was found that his brother Ringan had taken Neokul's wife as a mistress. He had sent away his brother with the armies to attack Strathclaird when it was found that the king of that land had seized Ringan's youngest son, which upset his sons, but he hoped their tempers might cool until the other man's return.
Peace, my sons, peace. I have given you my reasons for why we cannot simply request an annulment of your marriage to her.
He tried to explain, but Neokul would not be silenced again.
First, you allow me to be cuckolded. Then you would deny me the right to lead the armies in battle to prove myself. Am I to become a woman over all these insults? I should have known that the same questions would fall on deaf ears.
The man stomped away to the door, unimpressed by his father's answer. He turned to the remaining sons, who were no less angered. He turned first to Maulios, opening his mouth and sighing.
My good daughter also seeks reparations for the slaying of her brother. Ringian has requested reparation be made to her.
You shall say to her, nay. She shall not get one piece of silver. I slew that man to recover lost honor, and I would have slain him 1,000, nay, 1,000,000 times again, if only to avenge my brother's honor for the crime of aiding the adultery of that harlot and your brother. Thy Tanistan son has been humiliated, yet you choose the treacherous snake and that adulteress over him?
He shouted, leaping up to follow his brother, with David quick to follow also.
I should have known that nothing would come of this. I should not have left my lands, wife, and daughters for this waste of breath and time.
Each insult was a blow to Domhnall's heart. He turned at last to the youngest of his sons, his most beloved of sons, the only one who had remained by his seat, despite standing up at his entry.
Father, hostilities between us and the Macringans have gotten out of hand. Peace in the family is nearing its end. You cannot let Ringan decide the terms to us, your sons, else you shall lose us all.
He recalled the conversations with his nephews, which were equally vexing. They wanted reparations for their friend, the Laird of Balcaran, whom Maulios slew in his vengeance of Neocal's honor. In his opinion, his nephews, Padraig, Domhnall, and Duib, had nothing to do with the matter and should have never involved themselves. But the murder of the Laird and the insult to their father had caused them to wish to have Neocal and Maulios repay them and to have all four of his sons apologized to them and their father for what they called wrongful accusations. As for his brother Ringan, he refused to acknowledge the wrong. Any strong head of the family would have forced Ringan to apologize and banish the girl. And then there was Aina. She was the common factor, but she was married to his son. An annulment could bring down untold shame upon the family, and this would make them look weak in the face of the Moormares. Ruling was so very tiresome, Domhnall thought to himself, as his own eyes turned now to the flames. He should have never let Ringan talk him into taking the throne.
Something must be done about the sons of Domhnall.
Padraig declared in his deep, booming voice as he paced the length and breadth of the room he and his brothers had reserved down at the tavern. They had gone there in secret, with the aid of the captain of Padraig's guards, helping each of them slip away from the spies and gossip mongers who served Neocal.
They take action after action against us, and have also murdered their own by slaying Aina's brothers.
Agreed, Duib growled. As dark-haired as his brother, he was the swiftest blade in the whole of Duib Craig.
Why meet here?
Domhnall complained, having been brought along at the insistence of his wife, the Lady Beidich, who would never hear of them leaving her or her husband out of politics. While he had considerable respect for Beidich and her forceful nature, there were times when Padraig would have liked her to be more tractable, like his own wife, Helga, of the line of Helgi the Terrible. She was the opposite of the great Dread of the North, who had descended more than a few generations before to wreak havoc across the archipelago.
Because, you fool, if we meet elsewhere, the sons of Domhnall will know.
Beidich reprimanded him sharply before his brothers could. Seated in a corner, she listened to the men while stitching together a new tunic for their young son, whom she was always keen to dote upon.
Beidich, you really should not call your husband a fool in that manner.
You are too sweet, my love.
Padraig grunted, of the same opinion as his good sister, before he turned next to Duib.
And Duib, next time there is a meeting of the family, will you not tell Bardock to keep himself in check?
He is your good brother. You should talk to him.
Duib retorted with a shrug.
But he likes you better.
Padraig snapped impatiently, irritated by the flippant manner of his youngest brother.
Control yourself, brother, lest you grow old as Domhnall before thy time.
Duib teased amusedly.
I am not so old.
Not you, you fool.
Padraig snapped.
He speaks of our uncle, who really ought to chastise those sons of his better. That illegitimate lout Maulios came near to running Helga off her horse the other day, and refused to apologize for it.
I am all right, Padraig. You should not raise trouble on my account.
Helga said, attempting to soothe her still furious husband. Before he could respond, Dweeb retorted mockingly.
Mayhap we should run Malleus' waif off our horse in response. You suppose that'll resolve things?
Do not push me on this matter, Dweeb.
Podrick shot back, only to, when his wife threw him a reproachful look, suck in a breath.
Apologies, brother. It is the times that has me in so foul a mood.
I think nothing of it. So, what's to be done?
Apologize on behalf of father, maybe? And let Uncle Donald chastise him.
Domhnall proposed, only to earn for himself an astonished set of looks.
I mean, it is his fault for having seduced Aina.
More likely she seduced him.
Podrick retorted, at which time he said once more,
Shut up, you fool. Apologies cannot solve this problem.
I think it could.
You've the brains of a drunken pig, so leave the thinking to the rest of us.
Dweeb snapped, losing patience now himself before he leaned back in his chair.
What if we send a messenger to inform father that the situation is only growing worse?
We cannot do something like that. It might risk Kinoj's life.
Domhnall objected at once, the closest of them all to their youngest illegitimate brother.
He's right.
Podrick agreed at once, equally fond of the youngest in the family.
Father might turn back when what is needed is for him to rescue Kined.
If only he might have done so sooner, or not murdered King Strathclyde's sister, we would not be in this predicament.
Beatich grumbled unhappily.
We are all but prisoners in the capital.
None of them objected to her words, all awkwardly aware of the truth behind them. Almost a year ago, Ringan had taken a fancy to the princess, slain her when she refused him, and plunged the realm into war. Kined, for his part, had had the misfortune of fostering in Strathairn, which was to the north of Strathclaird, and was captured while on a hunt, with the Moare wounded during the pursuit. They all feared the worst, with Kined's release possible on condition of concessions too large for even Domhnall to envisage them. Only Domhnall the Younger, as he was called, piped up.
I do not think our uncle thinks of us as prisoners. He did raise us while father was away off to war in our youth.
Shut up, Domhnall. You are as addle-brained as your namesake and thrice as thick as the rocks beneath the highlands.
Beatich screeched impatiently. In all, they achieved nothing during the meeting until Domhnall and his pretty young bride had left, at which time the two remaining brothers discussed military actions and possibilities, with the elder deciding that word had to be sent west to secure the Laird's leal to Domhnall the Younger, who, as the Mormaer of Withwern, commanded more lands and territory than any other in the family.
It is surely a testament to Domhnall's humour that he chose to wed Beatich to Domhnall.
Dweeb jested as they made to leave.
Oh, I do not think there was much humor there. I think she is, deep down, fond of her husband if she might only forget her overzealous temper and own sense of entitlement.
Helga protested, always keen to see the best in everyone, for which her husband cast a soft look in her direction.
You are too good for this world, my love.
Podrick remarked with a slight laugh.
I do not know how a lady of the line of Helgi could prove herself so devout a Quirin and so generous a soul. Now let us speak of other matters, such as father's ridiculous passion for that harlot Aina.
Can I say why father does not banish her from the court? She shall be put in a brothel. A gunman would be too good for her.
The youngest daughter of Domhnall was sewing blankets with her sisters. She was the youngest of his children, but every bit as willful as her dear brothers, unlike her more peaceful sisters. Her needlework seemed more like she was attacking the fabric than the gentle sewing the older two women were doing.
Ayla, it is not ladylike to speak in such a manner. Attacking our good sister in such a way only brings heartbreak to our dear father.
The eldest of the sisters, Kirstade, scolded her sister gently. She was a handsome woman nearing 35, a mother of some 4 children with dark chestnut hair and eyes, with a pointed nose, and preferred that conflict be resolved with peaceful discussion. Recently widowed, the Lady of Walthran was visiting the family at the request of her father, as she was the only one capable of reasoning with the men, it was believed.
Now it is ladylike to jump from one man's bed to another's, especially with your good family. If she dreams of having dalliances, she should live a life as such. In faith, were I a man, I would already run her through by this time.
The baby sister rebutted. She did not care how the patterns turned out at that moment. She was far too upset on behalf of her brothers. Her other sister, Fianhall, replied,
It is not our place to cast judgment upon her. It is for the men to decide what happens.
She was focusing on the pattern she was sewing, sighing at the same topic Isla constantly brought up. She used to love her baby sister's antics, but now it brought forth only distress.
Other than our good sister, are there other topics to discuss?
Rolling her eyes, Isla sighed, a attacking the blanket pattern like she was stabbing Aina over and over, dreaming of her blood. It seemed as though, since they had wed their respective husbands, the two women had been drained of all the fire in their blood and souls. She would not be like that, she thought to herself. She would marry for her brothers, to be sure, and would never allow her husband to forget to whom he ought to be leal to.
How is widowhood, sister?
Fionn Hall asked genially of the eldest.
I do hope that you are considered a laird of Norfolk suit. He seems quite a suitable match, given his own close relationship with the Moare of Norfolk.
I have thought about it, but I dread remarriage. It feels a betrayal somehow to my Adam.
Kierstade murmured quietly, her thoughts with her daughters. She had only brought her youngest, her son, south, as she could not be separated from him and wished him to meet his aunts and grandfather at last.
But how is your own recent marriage? How does the Moare cool treat you, sister?
Moare is gentle, contrary to his appearance.
Fionn Hall sighed dreamily.
He may resemble a bear, but he's more lamb than bear. He himself has said he wishes for 3 dozen sons, and when he comes at me, it is as though he wishes for that many sons.
I imagine Ringen does the same with Aina.
Isla grumbled unhappily, which drew a pair of sharp comments from her sister.
Mark my words, sisters. You both have been wed to distant lairds, and there they may rule, or ruled once upon a time. But here, Ringen is laird, and he is no merciful laird, for whithersoever he goes, that is always quick to follow.
It was at this time that their father arrived, seeking their company now, if only to seek out that of his grandson, another Domhnall. Several days passed since the most recent arguments with his children. Domhnall was grateful for Kierstade and Fionn Hall, who were charitable and considerate. Yet his dealings ran hot and cold where Isla was concerned. She was happy to be able to talk with her father, but she constantly brought up the topic of his good daughter Aina, with her father reproving her for meddling in men's affairs, which in turn frustrated her. He was relieved that David and Maulios had left to visit the local monastery to pray for forgiveness from those they had slain, as it gave him some room to breathe. Neokal had kept his distance and had been far more private since the confrontation. In fact, ever since the affair was revealed, he had changed completely. All he had was Rybert, who remained, but he seemed to be constantly complaining alongside Isla, and Domhnall had thought hard about the situation. Surely there was a way to resolve the matter peacefully, he thought. But every way he could think of, it would end in someone being upset when he tried to estimate the result. He had wept several times at night over the broken family. Ringen had betrayed his son, but he was family, and family was all that mattered in this world. To escape his discomfort, he had a bard come in to sing in the garden, which was the only place he could escape to these days. It was as he sat there, listening to an old song about the hero Cormac, whom he had met in his youth, that the old king began to doze off. His centaur bard, Clyde, was from an old tribe from the lands of Moare, and had been with him for nigh on 30 years, yet still he sang as well as a man half his age. There he reclined, enjoying the evening suns, with only Clyde and Simon, his young charge, the youngest surviving son of old Constantine, for company. The lad had been taken hostage by Ringen when the crown was seized. The High King's brother might well have done him harm were it not for Domhnall. who had found in the lad a bright, cheerful companion. A companion who loved playing with sea turtles as much as he loved singing songs of ancient heroes. At present, the child was trying to sing along with the centaur, in his voice that made the ruler think him likely touched by the goddess Merit herself.
Uncle, we need to talk, and we expect you to listen.
Domhnall opened his eyes to see both Duib and Aina angry and looming over him. His nephew had murder in his eyes, and Aina's eyes were red from crying. He nearly let out a groan.
Duib, you need to remember that I am king, uncle or no. Commanding your king as such is hardly proper.
He waved the bard away and focused his weary eyes on his guests.
What is it that troubles you?
David and your dog of a son went and raided my good father's lands in Fortru. I expect you to compensate me.
Duib growled out, usually gentle and genial. The king liked him.
I shall have a talk with the two when they return. We can discuss compensation and damages at that time.
Domhnall dismissed the matter, putting it off to later. This did not please the young man, and it was his good daughter who stepped forward to convince him of the justness of their plight now, swallowing a sob as she did so.
Because of those two mongrels, I've lost another brother. I expect you to do more than scold them like they are children. I wish to have one of their heads to compensate for my murdered family.
She declared expectantly, as if she had the right to command him as such. The king frowned at her request, as a shadow fell over him at the thought of doing as she might have requested. He did not like her entitled demands.
Nay, you shall not be compensated, Iana. David and Maulius shall not be given to you for such a crime. You are not to command the king, as I owe you nothing. As for you, Duib, we shall come to an agreement over my sons, and I shall recall them to the castle.
Duib was about to protest, but Domhnall turned away pointedly, dismissing the two. The crown weighed all the heavier upon his temple at that moment, as he waved over Clyde that he might commence once again his singing.
A raid on the Laird's lands? What were you thinking?
Domhnall shouted at both Maulios and David. Both had just returned from their campaign, and neither of them happy about the scolding.
Other Mormares and Lairds are asking if they are to be attacked next. What in Zew's name possessed the two of you to do this?
Because Laird Karen aided in that harlot adultery, just as his elder brother had. He needed to be punished for his treasonous actions.
David shouted, face scarlet with rage.
And why side with him over your own sons? What were you going to do? Tell him you were disappointed in him?
We do not need a violent solution. There is a better way to handle the matter.
And what is that? Father, roll over. Why not request an annulment or allow Nickel to have a mistress that can treat him right?
Maulios joined in the argument with venom in his voice.
To bring forth an annulment in the family would have all the Mormares gossiping and undermining the family. We will discuss this when Ringian returns.
The king told his sons, exasperated.
Of course. Dear uncle comes before your son. Fine, if you do not intend to do something, then...
David was cut off by his father.
David, please, I beg of you, my child, this need not escalate.
Domhnall pleaded, heartbroken to see his once gentle son turn on him in such a manner.
I beg of you to understand. I can no more renounce your uncle than I could you. Though he has sinned, I still remember him as the wee lad I left behind in Bardrock with the previous Mormare. He begged and pleaded with me not to leave him.
There was a war to be fought for King Confronting.
David interrupted impatiently.
But I have never shaken the feeling I abandoned him that day.
Domhnall said urgently, grasping his son's arm.
He was not always as he is now. He was gentle, flighty, and sang and laughed. He was much more like Siobhan than Siobhan is now. I was forced to leave him. He was unhappy, and the Mormare, well, he was not a good man. I owe Ringian. I cannot abandon him. I love him, and were I to forsake him, it would also mean forsaking your cousins whom he left in my care years ago in turn. You do remember that, do you not?
There was a stony silence as the two younger men's eyes hardened. Both of them remembered well how things were once, but neither of them was willing to go back to that. They could never go back.
Enough, brother. Since father will not do anything, then there is no sense in arguing with him.
Maulios grabbed David by the arm, and his older brother shook the arm off. The two young men stomped out as they had days before.
Ringen. We might as well call him king. Father cannot make any decision without running it past him.
The second eldest son of the king continued his rant once he was outside the throne room.
Then we reconvene with our brothers. If father will not do anything, then we need to take matters into our own hands.
The younger brother decided, grinding his teeth and looking out to the darkened storm clouds once they were outside. He could sense it. A storm was coming, and he looked forward to it. Neokal was walking through the garden, ruminating on how to deal with his wife and how to fight against all the humiliation she had heaped on him, turning him into the jester of the family. Him, the heir of Caledonia, a cuckold, and his father would much rather allow that than spurn his brother. Just the thought made him growl. He jumped when he heard someone tramping about through the garden. It was Brother Freyr and his father's absolver. He looked around and slipped a letter to him.
Lord Naso, a message for the dear Lady Evelyn. She was so very eager to read your message,
the druid reported, handing him the letter sent to him by the monastery nearest to Lady Evelyn's brother's keep in Bardrock.
The messenger informed me that it took her quite some time before she was satisfied with her response.
This actually got the man to chuckle for the first time in what felt to be years. The Lady Evelyn of Bardrock was the only thing that could put a smile on his face, something neither his brothers nor Isla, no matter how hard she tried, could do recently.
Another letter from your lady love?
Rybert mocked him as he approached with a teasing smile. The man was surprised by the smirk on his brother's face.
That is the only reason you ever smile anymore. Say the word, brother, and I shall arrange a meeting.
Nay, people may suspect, and Dwayne would get word of it, and he would report it to Podridge and Riggin. Your brother is a bastard to that knave Bardroch, and it would make my head hurt seeing father choose Dwayne and him over us.
Neoko replied now, his earlier dourness returning in full force as he looked at the letter.
This is why you should wed her.
The three men turned to look at the two remaining brothers, Maulios and David, approaching them.
If father shan't do anything, then we take care of the matter ourselves.
Maulios explained eagerly, always keen for trouble.
Father, I imagine, did not approve of your tour of Fortrew. How was it?
The young Rybert inquired a little mockingly.
Nay, he did not, but it was quite refreshing.
David smirked at the memory of the raid. Do it better remember not to mock us. This turn in the conversation caused the druid to become a little uncomfortable, as he did not approve of such things as battle and raids, knowing that it was the people who suffered most from them, not the nobility.
I shall be off. You can give me a letter to deliver when you are prepared, Your Highness.
The druid started before he was stopped by Neokal.
Wait. I know the best way to get under Bardroch's skin.
The eldest of the brothers had a smile on his face.
Perhaps I shall wed her as suggested.
Are you mad? What of your wife? Are you not married?
The man of the temple spoke suddenly, thinking that first there should be an annulment before they turned to such talk.
I shall ride to the Archdruid and get your annulment. Adultery is not permitted, and a proper reason to ask for such a thing. I'm sure he will not refuse us this much, given he and father are former foster brothers.
Rybert replied, a light sparking in his eyes. The other two brothers smiled, ready to put this new plan in action.
And, as father's favourite, he will not suspect a thing if it is I who delivers the request. And as I am more mayor of Luthane, none will suspect a thing if I journey west.
Brother Farron, I shall send a letter I wish delivered within a fortnight, a marriage request. I shall go to Clemacraig, and you can have a monk bring the Lady Evelyn. Melios, David, and 2 of you can bring forth Isla to Clemacraig to join us.
The druid actually breathed a sigh of relief at Neocol's orders.
Something you want to say, Brother Fern? I do not like a woman breaking sacred vows for her own pleasure, and like the notion of causing an angelic maiden like Evelyn a pain. This plan seems to me the gentlest. Therefore, I shall not be one of the monks to preside over the union, but myself.
It was a speedy flight for Neocol to reach Clemacraig, and shortly afterward, Lady Evelyn arrived, as did his 3 siblings, Malios, David, and Isla. The wedding was small, quiet, and for the first time in a long time, a happy moment for the siblings and Neocol's new wife. The lady was a blonde-haired woman with clear gray eyes and an easy smile. She was also of an optimistic, cheerful nature than her changeable brother. It was as he swore himself to her that Neocol wondered, if briefly so, if maybe the marriage to Aina had gone wrong from the beginning. During that ceremony, she had continuously sighed and looked irritated, even as she caressed her new gold rings. Her brothers had done much the same, whereas with Evelyn, every moment was one to be enjoyed. She seemed to revel in his company for its own sake, and hardly paid the lack of ostentatious display of earthly wealth any mind. She had agreed, he knew, only on condition that Aina be set aside. It was at this time that he found himself rather excited for the announcement of the annulment to be made. All he feared was his father's wrath, but even that seemed secondary to the happiness of his new bride. Joyous as the wedding was, with Isla playing the role of bridesmaid, David the role of the father for her in place of her brother, and Malios imbibing more than his share of ale, there remained a shadow on the horizon. Not that any of them paid it the attention they ought to have. What none noticed was one of the monks hurrying away to send a rider northeast. 2 days later, when Bardroch heard about his sister's flight from his lands to wed a man he did not approve of, he flew into such a rage that even his friends, the McRingans, could not calm him. He was to march on the castle with a collection of his finest men, 20 in total, and was to arrive at the courtyard ahead of Neocol himself and proclaim that he wished for the Tennist's head.
I will see him dead for the dishonor he has inflicted on my house,
he shouted furiously to the astonishment of all. Awakened from his sleep, it happened that Dumnall was not yet aware, as his sons had not yet returned, so he sent down messengers to ask what had happened, at which time he was informed that the man wished his sons dead. Displeased, it was Duib and Podrick who were sent out to calm him on the orders of Dumnall. Already aware, as they had discovered the truth ahead of others, or at least Podrick had, and he had informed Duib, they were to approach the man at the head of the castle guards.
What brings you so far from Bardroch, brother?
Podrick asked calmly of the other man.
Nicol, bring him to me, that I might hew him down here and now, for the dishonor he has shown me.
Has he done? Stolen kitchen pastries? Despoiled the chambermaids? Or has he fished in your waters?
Duib mocked indifferently, hardly intimidated by the 20 men. All knew he could easily cut through that number in less time than it might take to assemble them.
He has had his way with my sister.
Darmot of Bardroch almost shrieked this last part. So high and loud was his voice that Podrick wondered if he might actually be a woman himself and not a man. The Moare continued, hardly noticing the exchanged glance between the brothers.
I will see him dead. I did not permit this match.
And there's the fact that he's already married,
Duib remarked lightly.
Be quiet, Duib,
Podrick retorted impatiently before he turned to the Moare, hissing at him.
Tread lightly, my laird. We may take similar issue with the MacDonalds, but if you push the matter, we will uphold our oaths to our uncle. You will not dishonor him or cause him distress under my watch.
Something in his tone made Diarmid pause. The man halted and stared at the man who was married to his other half-sister Helga, hardly able to believe his ears. Later, Duib was to remark that he could well have been a fish, and while Podrick might well have agreed with him, he could not deny a certain amusement later at the description. Diarmid was blunt, fat, and wholly unlikable, entirely unlike his sweet-natured sisters. It was said that the man's father, the previous Moare, and another Diarmid, had liked his daughters better than his son, and it was not hard to see why.
There is an order to these things. None may threaten royalty save royalty. loyalty. Nirkel has dishonored you and will die for it, I agree, but all things such as these require patience.
Padre hissed at him quietly, eyeing him menacingly, hand on the pommel of his sword.
Your sister was always a smitten little minx who might well have fled from any marriage you arrange, in favor of Nirkel. You ought to have locked her up better. Now that the heron has fled the cage, it is too late on that account, but now we must do things differently lest all tumble out of hand. But screaming here like a child is not the way, understood?
Jarmid nodded his head, his face no longer scarlet with fury, but blue with terror as he held his breath in.
Do you have any others? Any other sisters we should worry about, just out of curiosity?
Duib jested behind him, to the immense irritation of his brother.
More importantly, how did you hear about this marriage so quickly?
Padre demanded of the Moare, who stuttered out a single name.
Ketil.
At that moment, both of the sons of Ringan froze as they became aware of the return of the legitimate heir to the kingdom. It was shortly thereafter that the king called forth for a dinner, calling for his sons and nephews. The tension felt at the table was unlike any other that he had had before with any of the conversations with his sons. He had his charge, young Simon, and the boy's brother, Ketil, further down the table, and various other members of the courts, as were two of his daughters. Isla, however, was not present, which disappointed Domnall, and he realized he could not put this off any further, as he had done all this time. His sons arranging a marriage between Neokal and the sister of Bardroch was the subject that one side wished to address, and the other the annulment of the union between Neokal and Aina. However, he wished to mediate between the two sides. As a tradition of a meal of peace, one wish was to be honored. All present were his sons, two of his daughters, his nephews, and several other members of the nobility that wished to weigh in on one side or another. Of course, Bardroch came alongside Duib, despite Domnall's insistence that it should be family only. Tension was the dominant guest as the king looked at both sides of the table. His sons were to one side, his nephews on the other. The first to break the peace was to be Bardroch.
That beast of yours seduced my dear sister. I demand recompense for him stealing my sister's virtue, as now it shall be difficult to find her a match.
Nikel's marriage is legal, and it was officiated over by a proper druid. Therefore, it is binding.
David spat back at the Moare with such venom that one could have been mistaken for thinking him a snake.
He is still married to his first wife, therefore it is no proper and should be annulled.
Duib replied at once on behalf of his friend.
Aina is a slattern that has gone to Ringan's bed. As far as we are concerned, she can stay there. Adultery is a sin and cause for annulment. It only means Neokal's free to choose a new wife.
Malleus answered in a harsh tone as he struck the table with his fist hard enough to cause all of the dining implements to bounce.
And why are you here, Bardroch? It's not your concern.
Neokal added, as quiet as death itself.
Of course it involves him, cousin. You stole his sister in what can only be considered an illegal marriage.
Padre retorted, his eyes studying every person in the room with icy disdain. Both sides were heated, and he wished to ensure he and his siblings obtained what it was that they wished for, the crown. He eyed from the corner of his eye Ketil. It seemed odd that someone from another branch of the family be present when this was a matter for the direct family. He was aware of his uncle's weakness, and it was undermining his cousin's claims and dignity across the realm. There was a reason why he supported his father's transgressions, as respect for his rivals was dwindling, and who would have faith in a cuckold to properly rule? But to invite Ketil into the situation, when the man had a far greater claim than all, was to invite disaster in his eyes.
It is perfectly legal and binding, Padre. The Archbishop shall acknowledge my request.
Neokal argued back. The entire table erupted in heated and loud arguments at those words. For the first time, something none of them had ever seen or heard occurred. Kierstead shouted at Bardroch.
Niesel is correct. You do not have a reason to be here, as it does not concern you. This is a family matter. You ought to wait outside.
It became his problem when David and Molius went ravaging our lands.
Dewey rebutted, his anger escalating.
And what of my honor?
Ina joined in quite eagerly.
While you go about tramping with that harlot of yours.
She is no harlot!
Maulios shouted furiously, already prepared to die for his new good sister.
And you would know all one need to know of harlotry,
Neokol added for good measure at the expense of the woman seated across from him. The man was grateful that he had had the good sense to send his newfound bride away, fearful of what may befall her and Isla. Sent away to Logasti, to Maulios' wife Idis, who ruled over the small islet as all but queen.
If I may, if one acts in such a manner, dresses as one, and is known as one, then one must be what others describe you as.
Kettle said in an ironic voice, coming to the aid of Dumnel's sons.
And what of yourself? Still mooning after Malios' wife?
Ina taunted the son of the wise, who purpled with rage at this barb.
At least he can recognize a good woman, unlike Ringen.
Maulios retorted icily.
Pity we shan't say the same for you lot.
Dewib snapped, with Bardrock agreeing with him at once, despite the blatant insult to his sister's honor.
Brother, our cousins may have been right. Perhaps we should have him leave if he's only going to cause things to escalate.
Domno the younger remarked placidly.
Quiet, Domno.
His wife hissed at her husband, who looked at her densely as she whispered to him, as his brothers glared at him.
We must not interfere lest something goes wrong.
It was as she rightly said. Murder was soon in the air, more so than ever before. Everyone pointed fingers, shouting so that things escalated to the extent that David picked up his chair to throw it at Dewib. And it is then something that none have ever seen or heard before in their lives.
Silence.
King Dumnel screamed, red-faced and enraged, now shaking with fury.
This was supposed to be a meal of peace for the family. I wish for one final meal and no more arguments. And what happens? You all shout about Bardrock's sister or Dewib's land or illegal marriages. All I asked for was just one meal.
The room was silent now. Everyone was in disbelief that the meek king who would obey Ringen like a little lamb was now howling at them in the manner of a mad wolf. Neither his sons nor his nephews had ever seen him in such a mood. They even doubted Ringen had ever seen him behave so.
For the love of this sick and tired old man, can we not have one dinner in peace? One where we are a family. Nicole, Padrick, you both once played together and were as inseparable as brothers. Do you not remember? David, Maulius, Domno, you all raced and swam together. Now look at you. Dewib, who was it who taught you to use a sword? Was it not my Raybert? Why is it you now brave for blood? Above all else, we are family. Is that too much to ask for?
He tore then the crown off his head with such force that all stared at him, waving it around.
This is what everything is about. This is all about this hollow crown. Do all of you truly want it? Very well, take it.
The old man tossed the crown on the table, where it rolled along past the dishes and cutlery. The clanging sound reverberated throughout the hall. Everyone saw the crown rolling forward, no one moving towards it out of pure shock. Even Kettle was frozen, looking at the scene in astonishment. It was his birthright, yet he could not tear his eyes from the man who had taken it from him. The crown kept rolling until it fell off the table with another clang and landed at someone's feet. He it was who picked it up. It was Simon, who looked at it curiously at first, before he stooped down off his chair and walked over to Domno with it. Simon said then in his Highland accent,
Your Grace, you dropped it.
The man went to hand it back, which caused a tear to roll down Domnel's eye. He sat back down and put his hand on his charge's head. He spoke then quietly, so that only those around him could hear it.
Truly, you are the kingliest man in the room.
If I might, sire, I find that when I squabble with Kettle or my own nephews, that often all is made better after a good meal, rest, and morning prayers. If I may, maybe everyone would be calmer if they said grace together, or had fuller bellies, and listened to a song together.
Simon suggested, blinking his wide bright eyes, the torchlight bouncing off his fiery hair.
Maybe I ought to nominate him Tanist in place of Ringi and Arniakal. After all, what other has proposed thus far? Such sanity, such a reasonable course of action.
Domnel said to all present. It was Neokol who chortled, while Kettle looked on, apprehensive for his brother's safety. Never a man to trust others with the safety of the young lad he doted upon with more fervor than he did his own sons. The eldest of the sons of Domhnall was to remark, still laughing.
I could have peace on those terms. If I may, though, you've done well to raise your brother, Ketil, if that is how he might employ his power.
It is not my doing, but rather our father who lives on in him.
Kettle replied at once, signaling his brother over.
Hurry hither, Shiamon. It is now far past time you should be in bed.
If you will permit me, Ketil, I would have Siamon do me a favor,
Domhnall said, overtaken by the calming of tension in the dining hall. Pouring wine into 2 nearby goblets, he put them on a platter for the lad to carry.
Take these to Neokal, Pedrek, and thy noble brother, Siamon. I would have them drink together as brothers and make peace.
But Ketil is my brother,
Simon objected a little peevishly, causing the women, save Aina, to gush and giggle. Even Badich seemed smitten by him in that moment, while the sons of Domhnall beamed at him.
Aye, of course, lad, I misspoke. That I would have them drink together as near brothers.
Domhnall muttered warmly, almost in a grandfatherly tone as the lad hurried off. Neokol received his drink with a courtly, if mocking bow, one that made many guffaw, even Dweeb. It was Domhnall the younger who was to applaud and call for the man's goblet to be refilled, to the amusement of Neokol. The king smiled gently at the lad as he brought the platter now to the other side of the table, to Podrick. But the action that surprised everyone, that broke the silence, was Podrick crying out when Simon accidentally spilled the goblets, spilling wine all over the man's trousers. It was an accident, but it only served to further annoy Podrick, who slapped Simon. Simon fell to the ground, his cheek burning, as the man rejected his uncle's words and gave vent now to his inner rage.
Silence, you clumsy knave!
No one slaps Siamon. You die now, you filthy worm!
Kettle roared with the fury of both his father and mother as he drew his sword and leapt forward to defend the honor of his brother.
How dare you, Padre? He is naught but a child!
Neokol shouted, jumping also across the table, drawing his sword.
This is not about the child, now is it, cousin? I will show you how a true warrior could never be defeated by cuckolds.
Podrick responded by drawing his sword. This proceeded with everyone drawing weapons on one another when the weapons were meant to be left outside the room, so that Domhnall's insistence that not one weapon was to be present was proven futile. The princesses pulled the children present away from the table, shielding them, trying to get them out of the room, pleading with some of the men fighting to let the children out from the hall.
Please, we beg of you, let the young ones go, please.
Fionhal pleaded with some of the men at the entrance of the chamber.
Stop, all of you. Put down all your weapons.
The king jumped forward just as the table was thrown aside by Kettil after he had been rebuffed by Podrick. The king threw himself forward between Podrick and Neokol, but within all the chaos, first blood was spilled on the table as a loud cough was heard, followed by a scream from Kierstad. Everyone turned to look at the source of the cough, and they all saw a sword extending from Domhnall's chest just before the monarch fell down next to the fallen table.
Whose dagger is that?
Podrick asked, confused and horrified. It was never his intention to kill the uncle, who had so often been more a father than his own.
This is not one of ours. We would not murder our own father. We may not have liked that he always sided with Ringen, but we still loved him.
David angrily shouted in an accusatory tone.
Dweeb?
Podrick looked at his brother, confused.
Nay, you know I prefer to fight with long swords, not short ones.
The man stood in his fighting pose, ready to jump.
I also brought a throwing axe and gave up my sword at the door.
It must be burned! large rock!
Malleus turned now to the nobleman.
What? Nay, that looks to be of dwarven make, and I do not like them dwarves.
Stuttered the nobleman in question, paling as he backed away fearfully at the accusatory eyes that now fell upon him.
Nay, I do not think so. Looking at the dagger, it looks of dwarven make.
The eldest nephew of the king looked intensely at the weapon used to murder Domno.
Very few people could afford such a blade.
It must have been one of you, Padre.
David jumped across to attack his cousin, which led to the battle escalating once more.
Hold!
The younger Domno shouted in surprise.
This doesn't belong to us. I swear. Come, we must have peace for our uncle's sake, if no other reason.
He parried a blow from another of the nobles, one that was meant for his shrieking wife.
Let the women go. If it have ye no honor.
As the battle proceeded, two people were out the doors as soon as they swung open, dashing through the halls to leave the castle via a secret route shown to them years before.
Come, brother, we only have a little time before they take notice of us.
Kettle was pulling his younger brother Simon by the arm. The lad was gasping for air as his lungs and small legs could not keep up with the pace Kettle had set for them.
Kettle, you're running too fast!
This resulted in Kettle picking up Simon to continue on at his current pace. The boy gasped for air and looked sad, thinking of all the accusations, all the blades wielded family against family, and the anger.
Family should not be killing each other like that.
Domno was a king. Of course, there are going to be feuds within the family.
Was Kettle's answer as he reached the exit.
It is the way of things.
But it will be different when you're High King, right?
Simon's voice was small as he asked this. A tight smile resulted as Kettle replied.
Exactly. We are different. And we will never be separated again, baby brother. Never again.
They reached the end of the hidden tunnel, shown to the elder of the two from during Kettle's youth there by Freyern. The boy said to him,
I missed you, Kettle.
And I you, Shiamon. These last months against the dwarves was terrible.
Kettle replied earnestly as he hugged his brother close. As for a moment, blood and months of separation were put behind them. They had one another. It was all that mattered.
Now we shall make for Logiste, where Aidis and her husband have agreed to take us on as guests. And there we shall live for a time together.
Domnall was the first usurper king, O Domnall of 1,000 sorrows, the first whose reign ushered blood and killing, whose swords his brother didst borrow. His beard was long, white as snow, his sons many, and terrible was his wrong. All knew whether the sword or the plough they didst wield and didst sing. His kindnesses, as many as the stars, as Domnall, defeat he didst wring from victory. Such the pity even those of the stars, glimmering and bright, didst feel for him. Domnall was the first usurper king, O Domnall of 1,000 sorrows, the first whose reign ushered blood and killing, whose swords his brother didst borrow, to wreak havoc from highlands to lowlands and the sea. Across the land all in his wake didst flee, O Domnall of unending grief, he who ne'er left the land green, he who ought to have been to all men chief, O Domnall, who was cut heart to spleen by Ringan, most ungrateful of all lairds, for whom he and his sons shed many tears. Of Neachal the valiant, many are the songs. Neachal, the most gallant of Domnall's many sons. Malleus, of famous memory, who had turned all fields red. Malleus, who ne'er tolerated any treachery. Down to the halls of Zu he went. Of him the war monks sing still. For lealty he ne'er bent. David's spear that strikes the southern hills. Who was gallant in peace, terrible in war, bright as a star and thrice as terrible. Rybert, who held Domnall's heart, black of beard and of wit incomparable, who captured every maiden's heart. Rybert, the harpers mourn still, away with his father he went.